Welcome, and thank you for attending our Digital Events Strategy and Execution webinar. Before we begin, please take our live poll as seen on your screen. Which of the following aspects of digital events are you grappling with the most?
Well, hello everyone, and welcome. We are so glad that you're here, even though it is under such difficult circumstances and fighting this pandemic. You know, at JDC Events, we have clients, some of our clients who are first responders and medical personnel. So we are thinking about them, and we are so grateful for everything that they're doing, as well as all of the medical personnel. And so we just want to say thank you so much. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular webinar. And it's really because we're at a time where we can't move. We can't leave our homes in many instances. So that may have you thinking, well, how can we move forward? How can we continue to engage with our stakeholders? How can we continue to spread our messages and our organizational goals? Well, creating a digital event is one way of doing that. And so I'm hoping that some of the nuggets that you take away today will at least give you some insights and perspectives that this very well can be a great opportunity for you to keep moving. So for those that very well may not be familiar with digital events, I wanted to go through the comparisons, if you will. So when you're at a live event, you know that you have meetings and conference rooms that you go to hear the content. And at a digital event, it's the same in the sense of it would be delivered via a live stream or a webcast, or maybe it's an on-demand webinar that you can download. And then, of course, you have your engagement. You know, how do you engage? When I'm at a conference, I can sit next to somebody at a meal function, or I can bump into someone in an elevator or during the hallway or what have you. In the digital world, that can be the equivalent of maybe a chat or texting or matchmaking or some sort of online gathering that's developed. And then, of course, you have your sponsors. You know, your sponsors, you would have materials, you can visit with your sponsors or signage that you can see when you're on site. In the digital space, it's similar in the sense of maybe your sponsor's delivering a presentation, or maybe there's a banner ad with their logo, or maybe there are materials that you can actually download to access later. And then, of course, if you have a trade show, you know that an exhibit hall, you're walking the aisles, visiting each of the vendors. But in the digital space, you could have an online trade show. So you can click on the logos and the information that a sponsor would have, or an exhibitor, and download their materials, as well as there would be ways for you to keep in touch and engage with them thereafter. So that's just a snapshot as to the digital space and how it is different from the live, but it has similar properties, if you will. Now that takes me to the strategy. You know, at JDC Events, we have been producing digital events for many, many years, mostly in the form of a hybrid, meaning you would have your live face-to-face, and then you would have the component of like a live stream or a webcast, something along those lines. But you know, there are some people that have said to me over the years that, oh, just throw the event online. Oh, it's just easy, just do that. And that's actually not true. You can't just throw an event online. It's similar to a live. You have to think about the strategy. Think about the purpose. What is it that you're trying to achieve with this particular event? Whether it's live or digital, you still need the strategy. And the key with the digital is that you're not just delivering the content. You are creating an online experience. So that has to be something that's thought about and factored into your overall presentation and your overall planning. So for instance, is it a training? Is it a board meeting that you're hosting? Is it a session conference that has multiple concurrent sessions? How exactly are you going to put that online? So that's something that we'll talk about a little bit later in terms of delivering that. And then of course, there's your content. You have speakers, you have moderators or facilitators. How are you going to deliver this content? The difference with digital is that we're talking to a computer. We're talking to cameras. And so when you're a speaker, normally in a room, you can see people, you can see their face, you can see them smiling at you, or you can see them nodding their head up and down as if they agree and understand, or saying no, they don't agree, or maybe getting ready to throw darts or what have you. You know, you can feel the energy in the room. But with the speakers in digital, you're just looking at the camera. So that's why it's important that when you are working with your speakers and you're choosing your moderators, facilitators, all of those people that will help you to deliver your content, they have to be comfortable with speaking to a camera. Now, there are certain instances where you can engage a live presenter and they can see their audience. That's certainly something that can happen. But in most instances, it may just be somebody delivering a presentation and just speaking. So it's very, very critical that you prepare your speakers and that you think along those lines of who they're going to be so that they can actively and successfully deliver for you. And then of course, you have engagement. There are some that just think, oh, you can't engage at all online. You just can't do it. There are ways that you can do it, as I mentioned before, whether it's Q&As, texting, matchmaking, creating online gatherings, things of that sort. But that has to go into your strategy as to how you're going to do it. You have to think about ways to engage, which can be very similar to the live event in the sense of still needing to develop your strategy, even though you would be together. But online, it's even more so important to think about how you can engage people. And then of course, exhibitors and sponsors. You know, what is it that they want to get out of it? You know, where are they going to be positioned and how? How are you going to use their logos? Where are you going to place them? Or are you going to have them speak in any way? So that's something that we'll talk about a little bit later on to just get a little bit more understanding about how they too can still be featured in this particular capacity. And then of course, there's your platform, the technology. And our partner in this is Production Resource Group, PRG. And I do have Justin here with me today, and you're going to hear from Justin a little bit later to give us a little more detail about some of the technology and the features of developing digital content. So Justin will be back just a little bit later. So thinking about how exactly does it work? Well, it's similar to a live where you have an event website. And the event website would have all of your details on it, from your time that is going to happen, the speakers, the bios, the sponsor logos, and all of those particular details that you may incorporate in a live event website, you would have in this website as well. And it's also a place where you can place your downloadable presentations, the materials that you can access. So it has the similar capabilities of a live space. It's just you have to think through and plan what those particular components are going to be that you want people to know about and to access. And then as with live, you do need to market this event. So it is digital, yes, but you still need to, whether you're using your social media channels or emails or different ways to capture people's attention that this event is actually happening, you still have to have a marketing plan in order to do it. And what's unique though about the digital space is the data analytics part. And Justin's going to talk about that just a little bit later, but I just want to say at this point that about the data, it's unique in that you can have real-time data and understanding of what your attendees are doing, what is of interest, where they're downloading, what they're downloading, especially for those events or conferences or meetings that may have continuing education units. So you need to track people to ensure that they got the content and the information and the learning. So that's critical in that sense. So it's really unique in that it's something that can be done fairly immediately. And it's a great resource to help you to continue to be successful with your event. And Justin will talk about that just a little bit later. So this brings me to the content types. Now, you very well may have a conference that features roundtables, or maybe it's a conference or a meeting that is a board meeting, or how about a trade show, Or maybe it's a meeting or conference that is over multiple days and it has multiple concurrent sessions. Now, there are some people that might think, well, how in the world can you create that format online for all of those different types of formats? And so I wanted Justin to talk with you just a little bit about, if you did have those type of formats, how exactly you can feature them by using different capabilities of the digital space. Justin, can you share a little bit with us about how to go about doing that?
Thanks, Jennifer. So when we're talking about content types, what we're really talking about is two different ways for us to reach an audience. Do we want to be completely live, where we're talking in real time on a live platform and allowing for interaction from everyone who's on the webcast? Or are we talking about pre-recording content so that it can be shared at a later date? Now, for pre-recording content, we can still push this out during a live stream. A lot of the live events that we're seeing happen in the marketplace right now are a lot of pre-recorded content. This gives us control over making sure that not only are the presenters comfortable with what they're saying and that we can edit it, but also ensuring that there are no technical difficulties reaching out from each of our homes during the current crisis, and ensuring that we're getting a quality and well put together product out into the marketplace. Now, any live event can also be used for on-demand content. So this content does not go away at the end of this live stream. This is going to be available for you to review and to share with others and to keep the conversation going.
Great. Thanks, Justin. That actually then brings me to audience engagement. So there, as Justin mentioned, there are so many different ways that you can feature your content. And often it would be something where you are presenting and you're pre-recording and you're posting and people can download. So that's great. Now, in terms of the audience engagement though, think about this. We are working right now where we are pretty much all working online, and we are doing a lot in terms of the engagement of the camera and looking at our cameras all day and looking at our laptops all day. And so you would think that, well, how can you continue to engage the audience when we have this type of format? So you can use features such as Q&A, surveys, polling, but something to think about when you're delivering your content is that you want to make sure that people are engaged in the sense of you have to acknowledge your audience, acknowledge them, make sure that you bring them in so that you know that they're there and they know that you know that they're there, if you will. And something that's also important in that when you are delivering your content, given that everything is online and people are sitting for long periods of time, it's important to think about content in bite-sized pieces if you can, meaning speak for a certain period of time, 8-10 minutes or so, but then bring in some sort of interactive piece, whether it's a Q&A, whether it's some sort of poll or some sort of survey, so that you can continue to keep your audience engaged. That's the key here. And that's really one of the differences with creating a digital event, is that you have to think through the strategy of how you can make sure to keep your audience engaged so that they are continuing to learn, so that they are continuing to be interested in your content and engaged with how you are delivering it and exactly what you are saying in that sense. And some additional features of engagement, it could be gamification. For instance, maybe you have a trade show. You could create a scavenger hunt of sorts or some sort of challenge that people can participate in. Or, you know, at conferences or meetings or events, sometimes you have giveaways. So maybe then it's, you have a swag bag, but instead of a swag bag, it's an e-swag where you're emailing people, maybe it's a gift card or something along those lines. But you can think in that way to still be able to have those same types of benefits that you would have at a live event and have it at in the digital space as well. And one of the aspects that I think is fairly unique, you know how sometimes at a conference or an event, you may have a performance of some sort. Maybe it's music, somebody's performing music or something along those lines. I'm just going to use that example. I'm not saying that's the only one, but I'm just going to use that for the sake of this presentation. So you have this performance and you want to invite people. You can invite people to this performance. So you would have whatever the performance is. Maybe it's somebody playing some music or playing instruments. And then you can invite people into a room And the people that sign up to come, you can see everybody that's there. And then you're all in the room listening to this performance as part of your event. So maybe it's just a different time that it's happening, and maybe, people will sign up to attend it, but you all can be in one room. That's a shared experience. And it can just be like being live, at a face-to-face event, but it's just in the digital space. And then there can also be opportunities where perhaps you see someone there that you want to talk with further or network with, and you can go into another room with them to talk further about whatever it is that you want to talk about in terms of your businesses or your organizations or whatever the purpose is for the reason that you're there. So the digital space can be so dynamic and so creative in the sense of how you're delivering content, that it really can open up some great opportunities for you to continue to share your messages and move forward in that sense. And this brings me to some more of the networking capabilities. You can create an event-specific app for your digital events, as you would with a live event. And the app can have on it polling and all sorts of other features that continues to engage people. And then you're thinking about social media. You can live stream your event to your social media channels, which would exponentially expand your reach if that's something that is important for your organization. And then, of course, I've already mentioned before about the meeting rooms and the general gatherings, and because it's one of those situations where, think about it. There are some people that think that, when I just bump into somebody and I just happen to meet them, those serendipitous moments that you would experience at a live event just can't be done digitally. But because of some of the examples that I just gave you, it can be done digitally. It's just that you have to create them. And they can be just as effective. It's just that you need to put the strategy together as to what it's going to be and how it would work. And then, of course, I talked a little bit of one-on-one matchmaking. I often attend events where there are matchmakers, and those are great events where I can online, I can sign up and so that I'm eligible to be considered for a matchmaker, and then I would meet face-to-face for a live event. But for this, you're still signing up and you're still doing it online, but it's just that you would meet the person online. Maybe we would develop a separate room for them to go to have all sorts of matchmakers at a certain time. So again, the strategy is important to think through how you want to deliver this content and how you want to engage with your audiences, because it can be done. And so that brings me to sponsors, because sponsors are the lifeblood of many of the events that we produce, and perhaps of those online that are watching right now, of the ones that you're participating in. And so you want to make sure that your sponsors have equal opportunity as well. And so these are some of the ways that sponsors can be engaged, whether it's a sponsor can deliver a webcast of some sort or a presentation, provide some remarks that would preface some sort of event getting started or session getting started. That certainly is an opportunity. There's advertising opportunities and general email communications and other features, whether maybe it's a meeting space that they're sponsoring and so their name is on it. On your event website, the sponsor can be listed. When you have your live cast and your webcasts, there can be information at the bottom of it or on the side or wherever it is that you design it to be. The sponsor can be visible, and that's critical and that's key. So just think along those terms in the sense of how you want them to capture the best ROI for your conference, and how you as an organization can make sure that they are still involved, they are still important, and that they are still active and very, very important to the success of your organization. And that actually brings me to, and speaking about ROI, the data analytics. And I'd like Justin to talk just a little bit further to give you some details about the data, how it's used and the benefits of it, and what exactly the features are of it that people can walk away with, and truly understanding how successful the data can be used to help your organization continue to be successful in creating digital events. Justin, would you share a little insight with us about the data, please?
Yes, absolutely. So when we're talking about the data that can be brought out of one of these live or on-demand videos using this platform, What you're seeing in front of you right now is a good graphical representation of some of the data. Let me put it this way. There is a lot of data that comes out on the back end of one of these live streams or an on-demand video. It's going to tie into registration. So first and foremost, I would recommend that we are in some way tying a person's name or their email address to their viewing session by gathering registration or using some type of authentication for them to log in. From there, we're able to watch not only what parts of the live webcast they've watched, but if we have other video on the same platform, we can watch what other videos they might be jumping to. So it gives us a good idea of how much of a certain presentation they've watched, but also looking at the broader scope of this, all of your viewer content is there as well, or all of their views are there as well. So we can take a look at a heat map, let's say, of the really relevant parts of a webcast. We know which parts are really relevant to people by knowing, how many people watched a certain part, and then where do people drop off? Which parts of this content might not be as relevant for the next go around? Those are just some examples of the things that can be done with the multitudes of data that are available to us on this platform.
That's great. It's so true. And they say that data is king, so it's important, especially as event professionals, and even if you're not an event professional in your organization that's putting on events, it's important for you to know how your event is working for you and how to remain successful in doing that. And the data is really what's going to provide that continuity in the sense of providing you with a pipeline to understand that. And so then we have, of course, finally the benefits of the digital space. We've gone through a bit of an overview of creating digital events online. But what are the main benefits of a digital event is the message continuity, especially given today what we're experiencing in terms of our crisis, where we are not able to go out, we are not able to connect with each other, we're not able to engage, but you still are able to continue to keep your message moving forward. And so that's first and foremost one of the greatest benefits of a digital event. And then of course it reaches a wide audience. Think about going to a conference. If I go to a conference, I'm one person. And that means I can only go to one session at a time. But when you have a digital event, you can go to everything, because at some point in time throughout the event, or maybe the information is included or allowed to be posted thereafter, or accessible, I should say, thereafter, you still can download the actual sessions and the content. So you really can generate much wider exposure if that is something that's important to your organization. Understanding not everybody would want that, but that is something that is a critical feature that can make it even more worthwhile. And then of course it's engagement. You still can have the engagement. It's still possible to interact even if it is digitally. And then as Justin mentioned earlier, in terms of the data analytics, they're king. You can have so much information that from the digital event, and you can have it immediately. So that's something that is just critical in thought. We wanted to provide this webinar as a snapshot, brief overview of things that you need to be thinking about. We didn't want to create this webinar to be too long, just because of the fact that we know right now that this is pretty much all that you are doing and participating in webinars and spending a lot of time online. But we wanted to give you just enough that would provide you with some food for thought and for some insights of how you can be thinking and using a digital event to help you to continue to get your messages forward. So we'll be happy to answer some questions now, and any questions that we don't get to, we will answer them and we will make sure to email them out to all the participants on the webinar. And then if you want to go into a deeper dive later, we'll be happy to as well talk with you offline to make sure that we can give you more insights as to how effective a digital event can be. So Justin and I are available if you have any questions. We'll look forward to answering them.
Thank you, Jennifer and Justin. Please stand by now for questions we've received from our live audience. You may chat your questions now. Please put them in the chat function. Thank you. Our first question is actually for Jennifer. Jennifer, how does marketing differ with digital events versus live events?
Well, I think that marketing, when you think about marketing, when you have a live event, you still have to have a marketing plan for that live event, and you would have to have the same for a digital event. So when you're thinking about marketing, the only really main difference is to make sure that you have more reoccurring touches closer to the event. Because when you think about it, when you have a live event, and say, for instance, it's out of town, or maybe it's across town, or what have you, you may have details like, a hotel location or your airline ticket, those sorts of details that are going to help you to get there. So you already have those in mind. But for a digital event, it's online. And so it's very much something that could be missed or forgotten. So it's important the closer that you get to time, maybe a week or so out, that you're continuing to talk to the guests that are coming, sending them emails. And then, of course, the day before, and then, of course, the day of. You want to continue to make sure that they have the links and all of the information that they need to register, and to register as well as to attend after they had registered. So it's just something where it's similar in the sense of you still need that marketing plan of how you're going to talk about what's happening at the event, whether you have videos to help you with it, or whether you have announcements of speakers or announcements of other features. But you just want to make sure you're more reoccurring in touching your guests beforehand so that they remember that it's happening.
Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. We also have a question from Jenna. She's asking a question of Justin. What experience do you have of a virtual event with more than one stream and track, running simultaneously, of course? Any challenges that you've experienced specifically?
I wouldn't call it necessarily challenges so much as things you want to think through when you're reaching your audience in that way. We're certainly seeing a lot of events which tend to have different tracks. Most on-site events have simultaneous events happening, right? We have multiple talks happening and multiple breakouts at the same time. The thing to keep in mind here is that people tend to point and click and hunt around within a platform. Now, what we want to do is make sure that everything is accessible to everyone, so that all of your content that lives either live or on demand is within that same platform and accessible from people. But we want to make sure that we're almost siloing people into the things that we want them to be watching. So if you have multiple concurrent live events happening at the same time, we'd like to make sure that we are using a marketed approach to approach the correct people for the correct sessions that we want them to watch, but also give them the freedom to jump around a little bit and see what else is happening during the conference.
Great. Thank you so much, Justin. And Jennifer, this one's back to you. Tom is asking, how can I ensure engagement will occur and increase visitor satisfaction? Similar question came in from Obi as well.
Well, those are great questions. All of these are. In terms of engagement, it really is understanding who your audience is, who they are and what motivates them. How is it that you talk to them? What's of interest to them? You'll remember in the presentation, one of the things that I talked about was an example of conferences that I might attend that have matchmakers. And I'm interested in those matchmakers because it helps me as a conference participant to get more actively involved with the purpose of the conference. There's an exchange of information that I'm looking for. So that's that particular conference that's very important for me to go to. So it's for you to think about, what are those aspects that people are looking for in terms of your event? Is it matchmaking? Is it, for instance, maybe a scientific meeting? And if it's scientific, maybe then polling, a lot of polling throughout some of the presentations would be something that would be of interest so that you can study the data. So it's just important that you truly understand who your audience is so that you can speak to them and make sure that they are engaged and you're feeding them those particular engagement activities that they'll respond to.
Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate that. Justin, I'm throwing another one back to you. This is from Jillian. She asked, what platform would be best to select for a convention with keynotes, breakouts, poster sessions, trade show, and some serendipitous type networking? That's a big one.
It's a big one. And the answer to your question is that is sort of the space that we're all working in here right now. There are a multitude of platforms that are available, as I'm sure everyone watching this webcast knows. The way that JDC and PRG has really been approaching this is from a standpoint of vetting those partners, ensuring that we are choosing the best, not only the best quality
to put in front of you, but also the tools that are the easiest to use and the most accessible for as many people as possible. So what we've done is try to find out what's available in the landscape of each of these things. Now, the video platform is what you're watching on right now. This video platform can scale completely out to show multiple live sessions as they're happening. We can customize things to give you a virtual lobby for your attendees to join and gather in. And we're bringing in a lot of video teleconference as well. There are different use cases when we're talking about one-way live streaming like what you're watching right now, and two-way communication where we want multiple people in a breakout type setting. So really what it comes down to is choosing the best pieces individually, and then working with someone like JDC and PRG where we can custom tailor that experience to bring those platforms together so that your viewers and your attendees have a seamless experience.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And just one last question. And this is sort of a higher reaching question, Jennifer, for you. Sarah is asking, what is the best first step approach to have when deciding to launch a digital event?
Well, the first step really would be similar to what we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, is to identify the purpose and understanding what you're trying to accomplish. And if you've already gone through that particular phase and you know what you want to accomplish, you just want to move forward with it. Again, it would really speak to who your audience is and who you're trying to reach and how they respond to information, how they receive information. So again, it's really building the event to be specific to the audience's needs, your stakeholders, your participants, the people that are coming to attend. So that really would be the best way to engage in the sense of understanding your first step, because building it around them means that the information that's going to be provided is relevant for them. It speaks well for your organization, and it's something that both you and the participant can benefit from in the long run. Not sure if there are any further questions. It doesn't seem so. I just want to take this time. Justin and I have sincerely appreciated having the opportunity to talk with you this afternoon. And we, of course, will have other topical items as we go further along in this new way of working that we have found ourselves in. We have been seeing that many other organizations are interested in, or people are just looking for information about the topical areas of how you can continue to put more and more events online and how you can successfully do so. And so we plan to develop additional conference information, additional digital information so that you have that of different topical areas. And we'll just continue to move forward from there. So be sure to be on the lookout for additional information. Any questions that we did not get to today, we will be sure to email them to you. And again, we appreciate you being here, and please do stay well.
Thank you, Justin and Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending.